The wedding program trembled in my hand, unfinished, incomplete. My daughter Sarah's words still echoed, "Never. My father-in-law will, not you." The paper smelled faintly of ink, proof of my exclusion. Her glare cut deeper than the whispers rising among 170 guests. How could my own blood strip me of that honor? I lowered my eyes, but I felt every gaze burning my back. Her husband Daniel smirked across the aisle, proud of my humiliation. He tapped his watch, whispering to her, "It's settled." Too late now. Too late. 2 words that stabbed like a blade in my chest. What deadline had they forced behind my back? A program, incomplete, was more than a misprint. It was a silent decree, a rewriting of my place. I turned the pages twice, searching for my name. There it wasn't, erased, as if I had never existed. Would I let their erasure define me tonight? "Sit down, Dad," Sarah hissed as I lingered. Her grip tightened on her bouquet until petals bruised. Why did she need to push me lower before strangers? The organ played, but my heart beat louder. Had she forgotten who paid her school fees at dawn shifts? The program confirmed what I feared. I was cut out. But another doubt gnawed. What else had Daniel hidden from me? The air reeked of roses, sweet yet choking. I clenched the program tighter, ink staining my fingers. Would I confront them here, or wait for my chance? Daniel's father rose from his chair, straightening his expensive suit. He slid into the place beside Sarah, where I belonged. He glanced at me, lips curling. "It fits better this way." Gasps rippled again, sharper this time, like broken glass. I froze, swallowing shame like bitter medicine. What threat lay behind his arrogance? I remembered the mortgage notice from last month, unpaid. Could they be planning something bigger, using this moment as cover? The thought rattled louder than the organ's hymn. If so, I was already steps behind. "Smile for the cameras, Dad," Daniel whispered across the pews. His voice dripped with triumph, his hand stroking Sarah's arm. What was he buying with my daughter's loyalty? The photographer's flash blinded me for a second. But even in the glare, I saw his smirk. The guests clapped, the ceremony moved, but time slowed for me. I felt the torn edge of the program cut my palm. A thin line of blood stained the white page. Wasn't that fitting? My blood, left off their script? What would they erase next? My home? My dignity? I slid the program into my pocket, refusing to discard it. Proof, even partial, mattered more than pride. A neighbor behind me whispered, "Why isn't his name there?" Even in shame, seeds of doubt were already spreading. Could witnesses someday matter more than family betrayal? I wanted to rise, to declare myself before all. But I stayed seated, postponing the storm. One wrong word here, and they would cheer my fall. Better to bide my time, gather every scrap of truth. Still, my chest ached as if caged. Sarah's veil shimmered under the lights, yet it was a wall. Not a veil of beauty, but of distance. How had Daniel woven her so tightly into his web? The question gnawed like a rat in the dark. Could I ever cut her free again? The vows began, her voice steady, mine silenced. I reached for my pocket, feeling the crumpled paper. That incomplete program pulsed like a living wound, a reminder that this battle was only opening. Would I dare take the next step tomorrow? The officiant's voice blurred, lost behind my pounding ears. "Do you take?" But I heard instead, "Do you erase?" Erase the father who carried debts for her smile. Erase the man who once worked nights for her books. Erase me, while the guests clapped and cheered. I wanted to shout, but my throat locked. Instead, I bowed my head, hands trembling. No words now. Only patience. Only proof would save me. What object could I find? What record to fight back? Because without it, they would bury me alive. As applause filled the hall, I slipped out quietly. The night air struck my face like cold stone. A car horn blared, snapping me back. A black sedan idled, Daniel's father inside, watching. His window slid down. "You'll lose more than a walk." I froze at the curb, his words hanging heavy. What deadline was hidden behind that smug threat? The incomplete program, the mortgage notice, pieces of one puzzle. My gut tightened, dread rising like bile. What would strike first? My dignity or my home? I gripped the program tighter, the paper damp with sweat. The ink blurred under my thumb, but it was real. One object, one humiliation, already part of my arsenal. Tomorrow I would find out what else they planned, but tonight shame tasted sharper than wine. If these stories keep you company at night, subscribe, so I can keep bringing them to you. The officer never returned that night, but the silence pressed heavy. By morning, my phone buzzed, sharp as a knife against my ear. Sarah's voice, colder than yesterday. "The rent is overdue. Did you pay it?" Her words sliced deeper than the church whispers. On my fridge, the red notice still screamed, "Final warning, Monday, 9th a.m." The letters pulsed like fire, as if painted in blood. I touched the paper, rough under my fingertip. Daniel's shadow lurked in her tone, his hand guiding her. Why did she sound like a collector, not a daughter? Had my home become their next battlefield? "I asked you something," she snapped, voice sharp as broken glass. I wanted to remind her of nights I worked till dawn. How many winters had I walked home freezing, paycheck in hand? All for her education, her future, her wedding dress. Now she spoke as if I were her debtor. I admitted it. Yes, I paid. The words tasted bitter, because the landlord never saw it. The torn receipt I found last week confirmed it. Money vanished, proof missing. Who took it? Could Daniel have forged even this? The fridge motor hummed, steady but mocking. Its cold breath seeped onto my hands. Inside, 2 apples and a bottle of milk. My empty shelves testified louder than any witness. How long before hunger joined the eviction notice? "Dad, answer me," Sarah pressed, her voice cracking. Was that fear or rehearsed anger Daniel fed her? "I said it's overdue. He'll evict you Monday." Her emphasis on he exposed the control, not the landlord, Daniel's father behind the curtain. "Sarah, listen to me." "No, you listen. Fix this, or we're finished." The line cut, silence buzzing like hornets in my ear. Finished. My daughter's threat hung heavier than eviction. Could a father ever fix betrayal stamped in blood? I pressed my forehead against the cool fridge door. The smell of metal and spoiled milk clung to me. How many times had I leaned here, counting coins? Every coin meant her bus fare, her books, her shoes. Did she know, or had Daniel erased those nights too? The notice read, "Monday 9 a.m., final chance. 3 days to find proof or lose everything." Time crawled, yet the clock struck louder with each second. Could I uncover the missing receipt in time? Or would I face the street with nothing but shame? The date was fixed, undeniable. The threat wasn't Sarah's words. It was the clock. Still, another hook gnawed. Where did my payment go? If Daniel touched it, proof must exist. But proof never comes willingly. It must be torn out. A knock at the door startled me. Just the mailman, dropping envelopes on the mat. Bills slid across the floor, paper against wood. Among them, one unmarked envelope, heavier than the rest. Why did it smell faintly of tobacco? I tore it open, hands shaking. Inside, nothing but a blank sheet of paper. A cruel joke? Or a warning? Daniel's games always came with smoke and shadow. Would I let this riddle distract me from the clock? I sat, staring at the fridge again. Monday, 9 a.m. was no longer just a date. It was a blade waiting at my throat. The fridge hummed on, heartless, unchanging. Even machines outlasted men like me. The phone rang again, same number. This time, silence greeted me. Then Daniel's voice slipped in. "Tick-tock, old man." The line cut, laughter echoing after him. A deadline had turned into a countdown. The weight of it bent my shoulders lower. Not just a rent, but my role as father. What would people whisper if I lost my home? That I deserved Sarah's rejection? That Daniel was right to erase me? I walked to the window, pulling back the curtain. Across the street, his black sedan idled again. Smoke curled from the driver's window, bitter in the air. Daniel's father, watching, waiting, marking my every step. How much longer until the trap closed? The fridge door creaked when I opened it again. Inside, the apples gleamed red, like stoplights. One bite, sour, hard, unforgiving. I spit it out, anger burning in my throat. Even fruit turned against me in this house. But anger wouldn't pay rent, nor prove fraud. I needed the missing receipt, the stolen proof. And yet, I postponed action. Fear freezing me. 3 days felt both eternity and blink of an eye. Would courage arrive before the officer did? Sarah's words circled in my mind. Fix this, or we're finished. I had fixed her life for decades, piece by piece. Now she demanded more, with Daniel pulling strings. What else would they strip? My savings? My memories? Even my last name on a lease? The phone buzzed one last time that night. A text appeared, simple, sharp, undeniable. 9 a.m. Don't be late. My hands shook so hard the phone slipped. It hit the floor with a metallic clang. Outside, the sedan's headlights flared once, then vanished, leaving me with silence, the red notice, and fear. But silence can be louder than words. In silence, you hear your own doubts scream. Would I fight, or watch everything slip away? I carried the grocery bags like offerings, hoping peace could be bought. The plastic handles cut into my palms, leaving red marks. At her door, I breathed deep, the smell of roasted meat drifting out. My stomach growled, empty since last night's apple. I knocked, then entered, as I had many times before. But this time, the air inside felt colder, hostile. Sarah barely looked at me when I stepped in. Her eyes darted past me, toward the dining room. I followed her gaze, and there he was, Daniel's father. He sat in my chair, sipping wine as if it were his throne. A napkin draped across his lap, crumbs of bread at his feet. My place, my seat, already stolen. "Bring those here," he said casually, not even greeting me. I hesitated, clutching the bags tighter, my hands shaking. "Dad, just put them down," Sarah muttered, voice low. Why was she whispering, as if ashamed of me? Wasn't this house mine, built from my sweat? Yet here I stood, like a servant delivering food. I set the bags on the counter, the sound too loud. Glass jars clinked, apples rolled out, hitting the floor. He smirked, swirling his wine, eyes never leaving me. You should be grateful we let you stay here. The words hit like a slap, each syllable dripping disdain. Let me stay, when it was my name on the lease. I spotted something on the counter, half hidden. A crumpled rental contract, the edges stained with grease. I reached for it, but Sarah's hand shot out. Not now, she whispered, eyes pleading yet hard. Why hide it, unless there was something inside I shouldn't see? Another secret folded between their meals. The roasted meat's smell grew heavier, choking me. I hadn't eaten all day, and my knees wobbled. He cut into the roast, juice spilling across his plate. The knife screeched against porcelain, a sound sharp as glass. Every motion was a performance, reminding me I was outside. Even hunger had become part of their punishment. Sit, he commanded, pointing to a chair in the corner. Not mine, one by the wall, away from the table. I stayed standing, fists clenched, breath shallow. No, I'll go, I muttered, but my voice cracked. Sarah flinched, but didn't speak. Her silence wounded deeper than his words. I stepped toward the counter again, eyes fixed on the contract. My fingers brushed the corner, rough like sandpaper. But Daniel entered, keys jingling in his hand. Looking for something, old man? He grinned. The paper slipped from under my touch. Sarah quickly shoved it beneath a tray. I saw enough. My signature blurred at the bottom. But it wasn't mine. Too crooked, too clumsy. Proof, partial but real, that something was forged. Yet Daniel blocked my path, arms wide, smirk wider. One step closer and you'll regret it, he warned. The threat hummed between us like a live wire. I swallowed hard, feeling the cost rise higher. One move now, and I'd lose Sarah completely. But silence meant they tightened their grip further. Could I fight today without burning the bridge forever? The decision stuck in my throat, postponed again. Fear tasted like ash on my tongue. Dinner's family only, Daniel's father added. His smirk deepened as he cut another slice of roast. Family only. Yet I stood there, uninvited in my own house. The knife glinted under the light, dripping fat and power. Each slice was a reminder of what I'd already lost. Would they carve me away piece by piece until nothing remained? Sarah avoided my eyes, twisting her napkin. Her silence screamed louder than words. Was she trapped, or had she chosen their side? The question ate me alive, unanswered, unbearable. I wanted to grab her hand, shake her awake. But Daniel's shadow loomed too large between us. The sound of the clock on the wall grew louder. Tick, tick. Time, always my enemy now. Monday at 9 still approached, relentless. Every second lost here meant less proof to gather. Yet proof sat inches away, hidden under a tray. How long before they destroyed it completely? Daniel's father slipped. The word mortgage escaped his lips. So they were after more than rent, more than pride. The house itself was their prize, carved into papers. The roast's smell turned rancid in my nose. My hunger died, replaced by rage rising hot. Could I hold it down long enough to plan? Dad, you should leave now, Sarah whispered. Her voice broke, but she didn't stop him. Daniel's arm slid around her shoulders, claiming her. She leaned in, half reluctant, half willing. The sight nearly crushed me. How had she become theirs so fully? I backed toward the door, my hand trembling on the knob. The contract burned in my mind, proof half glimpsed. Would I return tonight to search, or wait until morning? Each path felt like walking into fire, but standing still meant the fire consumed me anyway. The choice, like always, was postponed. The cold air hit me as I stepped outside. Behind me, laughter spilled from the table, mocking. The roasted meat's smell clung to my clothes, heavy, sour. Neighbors across the street glanced, then looked away. Humiliation wasn't hidden. It lived in every shadow. I walked home slower than ever, each step heavier. The night seemed endless, but my mind wouldn't rest. The contract, the forged signature, the smirk. I replayed it all. Daniel's father's words echoed. "Be grateful we let you stay." Stay, as if I were already evicted, already erased. Would Monday's officer carry out the final blow? Or would I find the missing proof before the clock struck? I dropped the grocery bags on my own counter. One apple rolled out again, bruised from the fall. I picked it up, stared at its crushed skin. Wasn't I the same? Bruised, but not yet broken. The fridge hummed, louder this time, like a warning. 3 days. Proof or exile? No middle ground. The doorbell rang, sharp, urgent. 3 knocks followed, heavy, final. I froze, heart pounding in my throat. Through the glass, I saw headlights sweeping across the street. Was it the neighbor or the officer early? Or had Daniel come to finish what he started? The headlights swept across my yard like searchlights in a prison yard. I froze by the window, afraid the knocking would come again. But instead, the engine roared, and Daniel's car screeched to a stop. The smell of exhaust leaked through the cracked window, bitter and thick. Before I could move, a voice called softly over the fence. It was Anna, my neighbor, her face pale in the dark. "Sir," she whispered, leaning close. It was him who... Her words trembled, carried by the night air. I stepped onto the porch, clutching the railing for balance. But just then, the headlights turned, blinding us both. Daniel slammed his door shut, the sound sharp as a gunshot. Anna's voice cut off, swallowed by the roar of his engine. I caught enough to know she had proof. Proof of what? I couldn't yet tell. But the way her eyes darted, fearful, said everything. She knew something Daniel had done, something she hadn't dared to say aloud. Why did truth always break at the last second? Daniel strode toward me, jacket slung carelessly over his arm. His smirk gleamed even in the half-light. "You spying now, old man?" he taunted. My fists tightened, but I stayed still, jaw locked. Anna backed away, vanishing into her doorway. Her silence left me defenseless, stripped again. He stood close, the smell of cologne mixed with smoke. "You won't win this," he whispered, echoing his father. The words burrowed like nails into my chest. Then he turned back, sliding into his car. The headlights lit me up one last time. Then darkness returned, heavier than before. Inside, the house felt smaller, suffocating. The fridge hummed again, steady, mocking. I pressed my forehead against the cool door. Every sound felt amplified. My heart, the clock, the street outside. 3 days to eviction, 3 days to prove the truth. But proof kept slipping from my grasp. I sat at the table, the program still in my pocket. The torn edge scratched against my thigh. It was my only weapon so far. Incomplete, but real. Could Anna's secret add another piece? Or would she retreat into silence, afraid of his wrath? The question gnawed, unanswered, unbearable. Morning came too fast, sun glaring through the curtains. I hadn't slept. My eyes burned with exhaustion. Outside, the grass was wet with dew. Anna's curtains twitched, then stilled again. She was watching, I knew, but too afraid to act. How long could fear chain her tongue? A small envelope sat on my porch. Not bills, not notices, just plain, folded paper. Inside, one line scrawled in shaky ink. He forged it. My chest tightened. Proof, though unsigned, had arrived. But who would believe me without a name? I slipped the note into my pocket, heart pounding. Every step I took felt heavier now. The grocery bags from last night still sat untouched. Apples rolling on the counter, bruised and forgotten. Even food became reminders of my humiliation. Was survival enough? Or did truth demand more? The phone buzzed again. Sarah's voice this time. "Dad, did you fix it yet?" she asked sharply. I closed my eyes, biting back rage. "No," I whispered. She sighed, heavy, resigned. Then, Monday, 9 a.m., "You're out." Her deadline echoed louder than the officer's threat. I had taught her patience once, long ago. Now she used time against me, her own father. What kind of daughter turned into a warden? Was Daniel's hold on her that complete? Or had I already lost her before he came? I looked at the clock. 2 days left. The hands ticked like hammers in my skull. Proof was within reach, yet too fragile. One note, one whisper, one missing signature. Would it be enough to face the landlord? Or would they laugh, shredding it in my face? Night fell again, shadows stretching across my walls. The house creaked like it shared my exhaustion. Then, another knock, softer this time. I opened the door, and Anna stood trembling. She glanced over her shoulder before speaking. "Sir, it was Daniel. He forged the papers." Her words spilled out, rushed, broken by fear. "He bragged about it in the driveway last week. Said you'd never fight back. Said Sarah would believe him." Tears welled in her eyes, but she kept talking. "He laughed. Said the landlord was already on his side." My throat closed, rage flooding my chest. The truth was clear. She confirmed my suspicion. Yet proof still hung fragile in the air. Her word against theirs, nothing more. "Will you tell them yourself?" I asked quietly. Her face paled, shoulders shaking. "I can't. He'd ruin me too." She turned, retreating into the night. The door shut behind her with a hollow thud. I was left holding silence once more. But silence was no longer empty. It carried weight. Her whisper had become my weapon. Even half a confession was a start. I sat back at the table, the envelope open beside me. The ink on the note smelled faintly of tobacco, same as the blank paper I found last week. Were these games Daniel's signature too? If so, he had slipped, left a scent, left a trail. Could I turn it into proof before Monday? The clock struck midnight, each chime heavy. 2 days left, less than 48 hours. I placed the note beside the program. 2 fragile allies. The fridge hummed again, steady, cruel, unchanging. Outside, an engine revved once, then faded into the night. Daniel was still watching. Always watching. At dawn, the chill bit through my jacket as I opened the door. There, on the step, lay a torn envelope, edges frayed, dirt-stained. The flap hung loose, as if ripped open in haste. I bent down, fingers stiff, and lifted it carefully. Inside, a folded receipt waited, ink smudged but still legible. The smell of damp paper and old tobacco rose from it. My heart thudded louder than the morning birds. I unfolded it, eyes narrowing at the numbers. The receipt bore my name, the exact rent amount. Even the date matched the day I'd paid. But a line at the bottom burned like fire. Received by landlord. The signature below it wasn't mine, nor his. It was Daniel's hand, crooked and hasty. I had proof, altered, undeniable. But the doubt clawed at me. Would anyone believe me? A forged signature alone couldn't stand in court. Sarah's loyalty would drown me out in a second. Still, my hands shook as I held the paper. I wasn't imagining it. My eyes knew the truth. Could this torn slip save me from eviction? The morning air smelled of wet grass, heavy with dew. I stepped barefoot onto the porch, envelope clutched tight. Across the street, Anna's curtains twitched again. She had seen something, maybe even placed it there. But fear chained her silence, same as last night. Could her whispered truth and this receipt connect? Or was I still one piece short of the puzzle? I pressed the paper flat on the table, tracing the ink. Memories flooded, years of sacrifices folded into every dollar. Nights I walked home in the dark after overtime shifts. How many hours had I worked sick, coughing blood into rags? All to keep Sarah in school, her books paid, her shoes clean. And now, the man she married played with my roof. How quickly sweat and sacrifice turned into prey. "Dad?" The phone rang, her voice sharp, impatient. "Did you find something?" she asked, words clipped. I hesitated, staring at the forged receipt. "Yes," I said slowly. "I have proof." A pause stretched, long, unnatural, before she answered. "Don't do anything stupid," she whispered, low. And then the line went dead. Her warning rattled louder than the fridge hum. Stupid. Was truth itself now stupidity in her eyes? Had Daniel poisoned her faith so deeply? I gripped the receipt harder, the ink smearing. Every second I hesitated, their hold grew tighter. Would Monday come with my belongings tossed into the street? Or would I finally drag their lies into daylight? I walked to my desk, opening the old folder again. The lease sat inside, brittle with age. But one page, the key page, was still missing. Without it, this receipt might mean nothing at all. The absence throbbed louder than the evidence in my hand. Could Daniel have taken it already, to seal my fate? Or was it hidden somewhere I hadn't checked? The receipt and the missing page connected in my mind. Two pieces, one trail, leading back to him. But connecting them required time I didn't have. The officer's knock loomed closer, each tick of the clock. Monday, 9 a.m. The blade waiting at my throat. How do you prepare for exile in 2 days? How do you fight when your own daughter guards the enemy? The phone buzzed again, this time Daniel's number. His voice oozed through the speaker, mocking. "Find something interesting, old man?" he asked. I didn't answer. Silence my only weapon. You should know, proof burns easily. He laughed. The line clicked dead, leaving my blood cold. Had he seen me holding the receipt already? I looked around the room, paranoia tightening my chest. Shadows stretched across the floor, too long, too dark. The hum of the fridge felt like a threat now. Every sound carried his echo, every silence his smirk. Could he be watching even now, through the curtains? The thought made me grip the paper tighter. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of fear. I slid the receipt into a drawer, hiding it away. But hiding felt like weakness, postponing the fight. Was I protecting the paper? Or protecting myself? The line blurred, just like Sarah's loyalty had blurred. Even my own courage seemed fragile, half missing. How long before I became as silent as Anna? How long before they erased me completely? Night crept in, the day gone too fast. The receipt remained locked away, burning in my mind. Every creak of the house reminded me of absence. Every tick of the clock marked time against me. I imagined Daniel laughing in his chair, wine in hand. Did he believe I'd fold quietly, like a leaf? Was that his biggest mistake? A knock came, softer than last night's. Anna again, trembling, voice barely audible. "You must guard that paper," she whispered. "It proves more than you think." Her eyes darted nervously, scanning the street. Then she stepped back, retreating into the dark, leaving me with more questions than answers. I returned to the drawer, pulling the receipt out again. The ink still smelled fresh, too fresh for last month. Had Daniel altered it recently to strengthen his trap? If so, it was his slip, his arrogance made visible. But arrogance alone doesn't win battles in daylight. I needed more, something undeniable, something final. Without it, Monday would swallow me whole. I laid the paper beside the wedding program. 2 objects, 2 humiliations, 2 proofs of betrayal. One in front of strangers, one behind closed doors. Both carried his fingerprints, his shadow, his smirk. And both now rested in my hands, fragile but alive. The tide shifted slightly, almost invisible. But was it enough to climb one step higher? The night stretched long, silence my only companion. The receipt stared back at me, daring me to act. Fear clawed, but so did anger, stronger each hour. Could I turn sacrifice into strength once more? Or had years of giving left me too weak? The fridge hummed its endless song, cold and merciless. And the clock struck, cutting the night into pieces. At the window, headlights flared again, pausing outside. The sedan's shadow lingered, engine idling low. I stepped back, clutching the receipt in my fist. Was it Daniel, checking if his trap had sprung? Or was it someone else, drawn to the smell of proof? The car revved once, then silence returned, leaving me in suspense, heartbeat loud as thunder. The receipt trembled in my hand, but its flaw screamed louder. The signature at the bottom, clumsy, crooked, wasn't mine. It wasn't the landlord's either. It carried Daniel's hand. I pressed the paper flat, tracing the ink with shaking fingers. Every loop, every bent letter reeked of arrogance. It was a copy of me, but never truly mine. Would that be enough to hold in court? I walked to the desk, pulling open the old folder again. The lease sat inside, aged and brittle with time. Its edges curled, its pages yellowed from years of handling. But when I turned the sheets, my stomach sank. One page was missing, the page that proved ownership. The contract wasn't whole. It was crippled, incomplete. How could I fight with half a weapon? The missing page proved my fear was real. Someone had already taken it, carving my defense apart. No accident, no mistake. This was theft. Daniel's shadow hung over every missing line. My eyes burned, heart pounding as I flipped again. But the gap remained, a ghost between the sheets. How long had it been gone without me noticing? The room smelled of old paper, musty and dry. I coughed, dust rising as I searched harder. Drawers opened, documents scattered, folders torn apart. Bills from 10 years ago lay crumpled under receipts. Yet the one page I needed stayed hidden. Each empty drawer deepened my despair. Would truth always vanish the moment I reached for it? The clock struck 9, its chime cutting the silence. "2 days left, the officer's boots already echoing in my mind. I pictured him standing at my door, papers in hand. 'Out by noon,' he would say, no trace of mercy. I saw my belongings thrown into the street, the shame painted in neighbors' eyes, whispers spreading like fire. Would Anna watch from her window, silent again? 'Dad, answer me!' Sarah's voice pierced the stillness. I hadn't even heard the phone ring. She spoke fast, sharp, controlled. 'Do you have the lease? Can you prove it?' Her words carried Daniel's fingerprints, not hers. I hesitated, my throat dry, then whispered, 'No.' Her sigh echoed finality. 'Then it's already over.' The line cut, but her words lingered like smoke. Over. Was that what she truly wanted? A daughter's voice turning the key on her father's exile. I leaned back, chest heavy, staring at the ceiling. Memories swirled. Her first day at school, her trembling hand. I had worked nights then, body aching so she could learn. Now she turned those lessons against me. My mind sharpened on a single thought. If one page was missing, someone had hidden it. Papers don't vanish on their own. Daniel had it, or someone close to him. But hiding a page meant fear. Fear meant weakness. And weakness meant he could be beaten. I stood, pacing the room, footsteps heavy on the floorboards. The fridge hummed, mocking my hunger again. Inside, only the bruised apples remained. I bit into one, sour juice flooding my mouth. The bitterness pushed me forward, not back. Even food fought me, yet I refused to surrender. I had lost sleep, but not fight. I returned to the desk, scanning every paper again. Receipts, old letters, tax forms scattered in piles. The smell of ink and dust mixed, choking my lungs. Still, no missing page revealed itself. I slammed the drawer shut, the sound loud, final. Anger surged hot in my chest, stronger than fear. Daniel wanted me weak, yet rage gave me strength. I imagined him smirking across the table, wine glass raised. Grateful to stay, he'd sneer, knife cutting through meat. Every gesture screamed ownership of what was mine. But arrogance blinds even the clever. Would his arrogance leave behind another crack? Could I find it before Monday's sun rose? The question burned brighter than exhaustion. Night fell again, heavy and suffocating. Shadows crawled along the walls, whispering threats. Every creak of the floor sounded like footsteps. I sat at the table, receipt laid flat. Beside it, the incomplete lease gaped open. 2 fragments of truth, waiting for a third. Proof enough to wound, but not to kill. A thought struck. I had made a copy once. A trip to the library, years ago, for safety. I pictured the machine whirring, paper sliding under glass. Could that copy still exist, buried in old boxes? Hope flared, brief but alive. I rose quickly, searching the closet. But only clothes and dust greeted me. I sank into the chair, head in hands. Exhaustion crept deeper, pressing against my bones. The hum of the fridge blurred into white noise. The ticking clock carved away more seconds. I wanted to scream, to shatter the silence. But screams won nothing. Only proof did. Proof that remained one page away. The phone buzzed again, this time a text. A number I didn't know. Words sharp, clear. Stop searching. Monday ends it. No signature, no name, but I knew the hand. Daniel's shadow again, reaching through the wires. He knew I was close, too close for comfort. Why else would he warn me now? I looked out the window, the street dark. No sedan tonight, no headlights. Just silence, heavy and unbroken. Silence can be a weapon too, I realized. He wasn't mocking tonight. He was watching, waiting for me to stumble, to fold. But I wouldn't. Not yet. I tucked the receipt into my coat. The lease, incomplete, followed close behind. Even broken weapons can wound when wielded right. Tomorrow, I would search again, box by box. If a copy existed, I would find it. And if not, Daniel's slip would have to suffice. One mistake of his could undo it all. I lay down, the couch stiff beneath me. The papers lay on the table, silent guards. I closed my eyes, sleep creeping in slow. But the missing page burned in my dreams. I saw it torn, hidden in Daniel's drawer. I heard Sarah's voice, cold as steel. "It's over!" And I woke to the echo, heart racing. The night stretched, endless, merciless. But dawn always comes, no matter the fight. I rose again, weaker but not broken. The papers waited, fragile and accusing. Monday's clock ticked louder, closer, sharper. Every second now belonged to Daniel, or to me. Which would claim the final hour? The midnight knock rattled my door, sharp and unyielding. I froze in the dark, breath caught in my chest. The sound came again, louder, 3 times, each like a hammer. My hands shook as I reached for the knob. On the porch, the landlord's assistant stood, papers in hand. His suit looked too neat for the hour, his face stern. He raised the notice and said, "Proof by 10, or eviction." The paper crinkled as he shoved it into my palm. Its weight felt heavier than stone, heavier than my own shame. Behind him, shadows stretched across the yard, long and watchful. One moved, detached from the others. A smirk I knew well. Daniel leaned against the car, arms folded, eyes gleaming. The glow of his cigarette lit his grin, mocking me. "You won't win this," he whispered into the night air. The notice fixed the final blow in writing. Tomorrow, 10 sharp, no delay, no excuses. I had hours, not days, to uncover the missing page. The deadline pressed on me like chains, unbreakable. I clutched the paper, its corners digging into my skin. The ink smelled fresh, almost too fresh. Had Daniel arranged even this delivery himself? The assistant cleared his throat, impatient. "You sign, you show proof, or you're out. Simple as that." His words were clipped, professional, but empty of compassion. I wanted to ask him, didn't he see the forgery? Didn't he hear the whispers of fraud swirling around us? But his eyes slid away, refusing to meet mine. Even witnesses closed their mouths when Daniel lingered. The car engine purred low, steady as a threat. Daniel flicked his cigarette to the ground, ember glowing. He mouthed the words slowly, deliberately. "Time is up." Then he climbed inside, headlights slicing across my face. The sedan rolled away, leaving silence heavier than before. Only the assistant remained, tapping his pen. 10 o'clock sharp, he repeated, then turned to leave. I shut the door, the notice trembling in my hand. The fridge hummed louder, a cruel echo in the dark. I pressed the paper flat against the table, staring at it. Every line screamed finality, every letter a coffin nail. How had my life shrunk to this? Deadlines, forged ink, silence. I had built a home, brick by brick, paycheck by paycheck. Now it could vanish with the stroke of a pen. I opened the old folder again, desperate. The missing page still haunted the gap, taunting me. Without it, my defense felt broken, half-born. I ran my hands through the stack, fingers raw. Dust clung to my nails, the smell of age choking. Still nothing, just receipts, letters, scraps of life. The proof I needed stayed hidden in shadows. The thought struck again. Copies. Somewhere, sometime, I had made one. The library's hum, the whir of the copier replayed in memory. Had I kept it? Or thrown it away long ago? The question drove me to search deeper, box after box. I tore through closets, lifted lids, ripped open bags. Yet every search ended empty-handed. The clock ticked toward 2, relentless, unforgiving. I sat on the couch, notice still in my grip. The ink smudged under my thumb, proof of its newness. Daniel's fingerprints were invisible, but I felt them. He wasn't just confident, he was certain of victory. But certainty breeds mistakes, I told myself. Could this be his first crack? I closed my eyes, exhaustion pulling at me. But my mind wouldn't rest, buzzing like the fridge. Images of Sarah's face swirled, her coldness, her silence. "Fix it, or we're finished," she had said. Finished! Her voice had sealed me away already. Did she know about the forgery? Or was she blind? Either way, she stood on his side now. I rose again, restless, pacing the floor. The boards creaked under my weight, loud in the night. Every shadow felt alive, every corner watching. I paused by the window, peering out into darkness. The street lay empty. No sedan, no headlights. But silence itself became a form of surveillance. I felt Daniel's eyes even when he wasn't there. I pulled out the receipt again, laying it flat. Beside it, the program from the wedding, crumpled. 2 objects, 2 humiliations, both tied to Daniel's hand. They were pieces of a chain, though not yet complete. But even broken links still cut when pressed together. Could I stitch a defense out of scraps and shame? Or would the judge laugh me out of the room? The night dragged, hours dripping away like water. Each tick of the clock carved another piece from me. Sleep tempted, but fear kept my eyes wide open. I imagined the officer's boots striking my porch, the sound of boxes tossed into the street, the whispers of neighbors carried on the wind. Shame heavier than any eviction. I tried to pray, words fumbling from my lips, but even prayer felt hollow, unanswered. Was silence God's answer, or had I failed too deeply? The question burned, twisting in my chest. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. Pain grounded me, sharp, undeniable, real, unlike the silence that smothered me. The fridge clicked off, leaving the room too quiet. I jumped at the absence, nerves frayed raw. Even machines had abandoned me in the fight. I leaned against the table, breath shallow, weak. The notice still lay open, its deadline glaring. 10 o'clock sharp, no second chances. Would proof appear before the sun rose? A drawer I hadn't checked caught my eye. Buried under old bills, a folder bent at the edge. I pulled it free, heart pounding. Inside, copies of tax forms, faded and curled, and tucked between them, a faint photocopy of the lease. Not whole, not perfect, but more than I had. The missing page stared back at me in ghostly ink. Tears burned my eyes, relief sharp as pain. I pressed the copy to my chest, shaking. Even blurred, even faded, it was proof. Not forged, not altered, but mine. I wasn't weaponless anymore. I had a shield. Daniel's smirk flickered in my memory, weaker now. For the first time, I felt the shift. The clock struck 4, morning not far off. I placed the copy beside the receipt, side by side. Two truths, fragile but undeniable, bound together. The tide turned, faint, but real, within reach. I leaned back, eyes closing, chest steadying. For once, silence felt less like a coffin. It felt like a pause before battle. I drifted into restless sleep, papers still on the table. Dreams came of Sarah's laughter, once innocent, now lost. Dreams of nights I worked until dawn, aching, unpaid. Every memory tied itself to these papers now. Not just ink and signatures, but decades of sacrifice. Decades that Daniel couldn't erase with forgery. Would the judge see it the same way? The knock came again, this time at dawn. 3 sharp raps, not as heavy as before. I woke, startled, clutching the papers to my chest. Through the glass, I saw a different face. Not the assistant, not Daniel, someone else. The landlord himself, eyes narrowed, waiting. My heart stopped, then raced. The landlord's eyes drilled into me as I opened the door. His hand extended, palm up, waiting without a word. The morning air was sharp, colder than it should be. I clutched the photocopy in one hand, the receipt in the other. His brow furrowed as he scanned the edges, skeptical already. "These won't hold," he muttered, voice flat as stone. "You'll need more than this by the hearing." My stomach dropped, but his words cracked a window of time. The hearing. So the officer's threat wasn't the end. One more chance lingered, though slim, fragile as glass. He folded the papers back into my hand. "Tomorrow, 10 sharp. Bring something real," he said. Then he turned, walking down the steps without looking back. His footsteps faded, but the weight in my chest grew heavier. I shut the door, leaning against it, heart racing. Silence wrapped the house again, broken only by the fridge hum. The clock ticked, each second carving away my hope. Proof wasn't enough. It needed to be undeniable. The photocopy whispered survival, not victory. The receipt screamed forgery, but lacked a witness. What could I find in less than 24 hours? The phone buzzed on the counter, sharp and urgent. I grabbed it, expecting Sarah's clipped voice. Instead, a voicemail notification blinked. Waiting. I pressed play, hands trembling, breath caught. Her voice filled the room, soft but frantic. "Dad, don't!" Then static crackled, muffling her tone. But beneath the noise, another voice slithered through. Daniel's voice, cruel and unmistakable, cut clear. "Forge it! He won't fight back." The words froze me, the phone shaking in my grip. There it was, proof beyond ink, beyond paper. His confession, caught without his knowing, trapped in the machine. The recording hissed, then ended abruptly. I stared at the screen, heart thundering. The smell of dust from the carpet rose as I knelt. I pressed the phone to my chest, the plastic cold. It wasn't just my salvation. It was my daughter's too. If she left it, even by accident, part of her still fought. Had she recorded it on purpose? Or had truth slipped from Daniel's arrogance again? The question burned, but the proof remained. I replayed it, ears straining, hands gripping tight. Each syllable from him dripped poison, yet carried weight. "Forge it," he'd said, like ordering wine at dinner. So casual, so sure, so damning. The arrogance that had mocked me now betrayed him. His own words, sharper than any blade. Would the judge hear them as I did? Relief surged, but fear chased close behind. Voicemails can vanish, phones can fail. What if the battery died, the file corrupted? What if Daniel found a way to erase it? I needed a copy, something secure, beyond his reach. The thought spurred me into action. I searched drawers for the old recorder I once used. The device was buried under tools, dusty and cracked. I fumbled with the buttons, praying it still worked. Its red light blinked faintly, alive but weak. I held the phone to its mic, replaying the message. Daniel's voice spilled again into the machine's memory. This time, it burned deeper, etched in 2 places. 2 witnesses now, plastic and tape. I sank into the chair, exhausted, but steadier. The fridge hummed, but I barely heard it. The air smelled faintly of tobacco again. Had someone left another envelope? Or was it memory? I peered through the window, street empty, shadows long. Yet I felt watched, as always, Daniel's gaze lingering. Was he close enough to know I had him? The phone rang, screen lighting with Sarah's name. I answered, voice raw, trembling. "Dad, don't bring anything tomorrow," she said. Her tone was pleading, not sharp this time. "Why not?" I asked, though my chest knew. Because it's already decided," she whispered. The line cut before I could speak again. Her words opened another wound. Already decided. Was she protecting me or warning me? Her silence last night, her whispers today, 2 sides of a coin. Was she trapped deeper than I thought? Or had she chosen her place fully in their camp? Either way, tomorrow loomed larger, heavier. Proof in hand, but family slipping further. I laid the phone on the table, staring at it. The recording was alive inside, beating like a second heart. But hearts can fail, and proof can vanish. I couldn't risk holding only 1 copy. I searched for Anna, thinking of her whisper. Could she hold the recorder? Guard it for me? Or would fear lock her doors again? The night crawled, darker than before. Every tick of the clock pounded in my skull. The recording replayed in my mind, word for word. Forge it. He won't fight back. Tomorrow, that arrogance would face daylight. Tomorrow, his voice would betray him publicly. If only my daughter still believed in truth. I rose at midnight, placing the recorder in my coat. The receipt, the photocopy, the program, all packed too. 3 fragile allies carried close to my chest. Would they stand strong together or crumble apart? I didn't know, but I had no choice. The officers' boots would return soon enough, and I'd meet them head-on this time. I lay down, sleep shallow, haunted. Dreams came of Sarah's childhood laughter, soft and pure. Dreams of sacrifices, nights walking in rain, coins counted twice. Every memory fueled the fire to stand. Every humiliation sharpened the blade of proof. I woke before dawn, heart steady, breath sure. The phone still glowed. Recorder still read. The knock would come soon, I knew. Neighbors would gather, whispers ready. Daniel would smirk. Sarah would look away. But this time, I carried their own words. Proof carved in voice, undeniable, irreversible. The morning light cut through the curtains, and with it, the battle day began. At 10 sharp, the landlord stood across from me, papers ready. The hearing room was crowded, neighbors filling the back benches. Their whispers scratched at my skin, each syllable stinging. Sarah sat beside Daniel, her eyes fixed on the floor. Daniel leaned back, smug, lips curled in victory already. His father loomed behind them, arms folded, eyes cold. The air smelled of polish and sweat, heavy and suffocating. The landlord's voice cut through the silence. "Proof," he said simply, his hand open on the table. I laid the receipt down, corners trembling in my grip. He picked it up, eyes narrowing at the crooked signature. "This looks altered," he muttered, shaking his head. Daniel chuckled low, his arrogance filling the room. "Your Honor, you can see it's worthless." The judge leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Where is the missing lease page?" he demanded. I slid the faded photocopy across the table, heart pounding. It wasn't perfect, blurred lines faint under the light. But it was whole, complete enough to stand. Daniel stiffened, his smirk faltering for a moment. The crack in his confidence widened, faint but visible. I seized the moment, pulling out my final weapon. The recorder's red light blinked as I pressed play. Static hissed. Then Sarah's voice filled the room. "Dad, don't!" Then Daniel's voice slashed through. "Forge it! He won't fight back!" Gasps rippled through the benches, sharp and echoing. Even the landlord's pen slipped from his fingers. Daniel lurched forward, face pale, voice raised. "That's fake! He doctored it!" he shouted. But the judge lifted a hand, silencing him. The tape replayed, the words undeniable, heavy as stone. Neighbors leaned in closer, whispering louder now. The tide of opinion shifted before my eyes. For once, shame was not mine to carry. Sarah's head snapped up, tears brimming. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The sound of her breath filled the silence. Her hands trembled as she pulled away from him. "Daniel, you said you didn't," she choked. He grabbed her wrist, hissing under his breath. "Shut up. Not here." The judge's gavel slammed, echoing like thunder. "Order!" he barked, his eyes locked on Daniel. "You admit this voice is yours?" he asked. Daniel's jaw tightened, his silence a louder confession. Every second he refused, the room shifted further. Neighbors shook their heads, their faces hardening. Humiliation now sat heavy on his shoulders. I leaned forward, voice steady, stronger than I felt. "They erased me from my daughter's wedding. They tried to erase me from my own home. But paper lies. Voices don't." The judge nodded, leaning back in his chair. The gavel struck again, harder this time. "This evidence will be reviewed officially." The landlord's face changed, lips tightening. He snatched the forged receipt, tearing it in half. "I won't stand by a fraud," he muttered. Gasps rose again, louder than before. Daniel's father shifted uneasily, jaw clenched. The arrogance in his eyes dimmed, replaced by unease. For the first time, he looked less certain. Sarah's sob broke through the silence, raw and sharp. Her tears stained the table as she whispered, "Dad." Daniel pulled her arm, dragging her back toward him. But she resisted, her chair screeching across the floor. "I heard you," she cried, her voice shaking. "You said it yourself." Daniel's face twisted, mask cracking in front of all. Neighbors rose to their feet, voices growing louder. "He forged it," one shouted from the back. "Shameful!" Another spat, the word cutting deep. Their outrage filled the room like fire spreading. Daniel's father tried to stand tall, but the heat burned. Even his expensive suit looked smaller under their scorn. The crowd had chosen its side, and it wasn't his. I felt the shift, power tilting for once. Not fully, not final, but real and undeniable. For months, shame had wrapped me like chains. Now those chains cracked, piece by piece, link by link. The judge's eyes pinned Daniel, cold and unwavering. Forgery, coercion, and manipulation, this will not stand. The gavel thundered again, each strike a blow. Daniel slammed his fist on the table, face red. "This is a setup," he barked, spittle flying. But his words only fed the fire around him. The neighbors jeered, their voices rising higher. Even Sarah pulled her hand from his grip. Her face was pale, lips trembling. She looked at me, and then looked away. The landlord gathered his papers, clearing his throat. "Until this is settled, the eviction is frozen." The words landed like a stone lifting from my chest. Gasps turned to murmurs, relief mingling with shock. Daniel's father cursed under his breath, low but bitter. He grabbed Daniel's arm, yanking him back. But the damage was done, the tide against them. The judge called for recess, ending the clash. Chairs scraped, voices buzzed, the room alive with noise. But the recording still echoed in everyone's ears. The proof wasn't paper, wasn't fragile anymore. It was voice, arrogance, truth exposed raw. Daniel stood smaller, hunched, his smirk erased. For once, I wasn't the one shrinking. I gathered my papers, hands steadier than before. The receipt, torn, still mattered. Proof of his hand. The photocopy, blurred, still mattered. Proof of mine. But the recording mattered most. It lived now not just in my pocket, but in their ears. A chorus of witnesses carried it forward. Daniel couldn't silence them all. As I turned to leave, Sarah called softly. Her voice cracked, fragile, but it reached me. "Dad, I didn't know." Her words sliced both ways, hope and hurt. I paused, but I didn't turn fully. Not yet, not here, not with them watching. The time for answers hadn't come. I walked out into sunlight, brighter than expected. The air felt clearer, sharp against my lungs, but shadows still lingered. Daniel's father's glare, heavy, unbroken. This battle was cracked, not finished. The hearing would resume, the judgment still to come. But today, the ground had shifted under my feet, and Daniel had fallen one step lower. The crowd spilled outside, voices still buzzing. Some patted my back, murmuring, "You did right." Others shook their heads at Daniel, disgust plain. He shoved past them, face twisted, voice tight. "This isn't over," he hissed, loud enough for me. His father pulled him toward the car, jaw tight. Their sedan roared to life, exhaust stinging the air. I stood alone for a moment, papers clutched tight. My chest ached, but not from shame this time. It ached with something sharper, heavier, resolve. The road ahead was steep, but climbable now. I glanced once at the courthouse doors, then away. The gavel's echo still rang in my ears. Tomorrow, it would strike again. Final. Undeniable. The recording still echoed in my head long after I left the hall. But as I replayed it in silence, a new detail struck me. The words weren't only about the lease or the rent. Daniel's sneer carried something darker, deeper. Just like we did at the wedding. His voice spat faintly. My breath froze, the memory of humiliation flashing back. Had they plotted my shame even before that day? The truth was larger than a single forgery. The wedding itself was their stage, their rehearsal. I saw Sarah's bouquet bruised in her grip, the missing program. I remembered Daniel's father smiling as I shrank in my seat. They weren't accidents. They were designs. And now their arrogance had confessed it in full. The tape had captured more than they wanted. The final hearing began with heavier silence than before. Neighbors filled every bench, whispers buzzing louder this time. The landlord sat straighter, papers aligned in neat stacks. The judge's gavel struck once, sharp, commanding. "All parties present?" he asked, eyes sweeping the room. Daniel nodded stiffly, jaw clenched, Sarah pale beside him. I raised my hand, recorder clutched tight. The judge motioned for me to proceed. I stood slowly, knees stiff, but voice steady. "This isn't only about a lease," I said. I pressed play, letting the room fill with Daniel's voice. "Forge it. He won't fight back, just like we did at the wedding." Gasps exploded, louder than yesterday, filling the chamber. Even the judge's face hardened at the new revelation. Daniel lunged forward, fists clenched, eyes wild. "You can't use that! It's private!" he shouted. But his father gripped his shoulder, pulling him back. The smirk he once carried was gone now, drained. The weight of witnesses crushed them both into silence. Sarah buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Her tears dripped onto the table, staining the wood. The landlord stood, voice shaking. "I will not defend them," he said firmly. He held up the torn receipt, pieces fluttering. This was fraud, deception, deliberate manipulation. The crowd murmured approval, nods rippling through the benches. Daniel's father sank into his seat, shoulders heavy. For once, no defense came from his lips. The judge leaned forward, eyes sharp as blades. This court recognizes deliberate forgery and intent to deceive. His gavel slammed, the sound thunderous in the room. Eviction denied. Property rights remain with the defendant. Applause broke out, sharp, rising like a storm. The neighbors clapped, voices echoing, support undeniable. The tide had turned fully, justice finally breathing. Daniel slammed his fist against the table, face red. "You'll regret this," he barked, pointing at me. But his voice cracked, thin, hollow. No one listened anymore. The crowd had chosen. His words dissolved into the noise of disapproval. Even Sarah recoiled, pulling her arm free. Her eyes locked on mine, guilt drowning her. She whispered softly, barely audible. "Dad, I'm sorry." Her apology cut both ways, wound and healing together. I wanted to embrace her, but my hands stayed still. The scar was too fresh, the betrayal too deep. Time alone could mend what words could not. Still, her voice reached me where silence once ruled. The judge rose, signaling the end. "This matter is settled. Fraud will not prevail." His gavel struck one final time, echoing like release. I gathered my papers slowly, each fold deliberate. The receipt, the photocopy, the program, all witnesses to truth. But the recording was the blade that cut deepest. Daniel's own voice turned against him. Outside, sunlight poured over the courthouse steps. The crowd followed, their voices now warm. "Justice, at last," someone murmured near my ear. I breathed in deeply, the air sharp but clean. For the first time in months, shame loosened its grip. It didn't vanish, it never would, but it eased, enough to let me stand taller. Daniel stormed past, his father dragging him toward the car. They avoided every eye, shadows clinging to their suits. Neighbors jeered softly, their heads shaking. Sarah followed slower, her steps unsteady, eyes red. She paused once, glancing at me with trembling lips. I nodded faintly, not ready for more. She lowered her gaze and walked on. Anna appeared at my side, voice firm. "You did it," she whispered, almost smiling. Her presence, once silent, now stood strong. "You weren't alone, even when it felt that way." Her words lifted me, quiet but steady. The crowd dispersed, the courthouse doors closing behind. But the echo of victory lingered in the air. That night, I sat by the table, papers spread. The fridge hummed again, but no longer mocked me. The clock ticked, but each second felt lighter. I looked at the bruised apples, left untouched for days. I bit into one, sour, still, but bearable. Even bitterness could be endured when truth stood tall. For once, silence felt like peace. I thought back to every sacrifice, every night worked. Coins counted in dark rooms, bills paid late, hunger ignored. All for Sarah, for her future, for her smile. Those nights weren't wasted, even if forgotten by her. They shaped me, hardened me, carried me here. And now, they carried proof too. Proof that a father doesn't vanish so easily. The program lay folded in my hand. Its torn edge no longer stung as deeply. It wasn't just paper. It was a reminder. They had tried to erase me, but failed. My name lived, not in print, but in truth. And truth had spoken louder than their lies, louder than their smirks, louder than their silence. I leaned back, sighing, letting weariness settle. The battle was won, but the war within lingered. Sarah's tears haunted me more than Daniel's threats. Could she come back? Or was the bridge ash already? I didn't know. Not tonight, not yet. But I knew this. I had stood, and standing had carried me here. The night closed in, quiet and soft. For once, no knocks, no engines, no shadows, only stillness, fragile but mine. I folded the papers carefully, one by one. Each carried scars, stains, smudges, but also victory. They were pieces of me, of survival, of fight. And I would guard them until my last breath. I looked at the recorder, still blinking red. It held not just Daniel's downfall, but my endurance. Every second replayed my refusal to bend. It was my shield, my witness, my redemption. The hum of the fridge joined it like an ally. Two sounds, once mocking, now steady companions. I smiled faintly, tired but unbroken. I turned off the light, sinking into the couch. The room smelled faintly of old paper, familiar, grounding. The clock ticked on, not a threat anymore. Time moved, but it didn't crush me tonight. I closed my eyes, letting darkness settle gently. The past was scarred, the future uncertain. But justice had spoken, and I was still here. What would you have done in my place? Leave your story below. I want to read it. Subscribe, because these memories don't fade, and the next one may cut even deeper.